If the incoming American administration moves forward with tariffs, we will not hesitate to act.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Toronto today, chairing a meeting of the newly announced Council on Canada-U.S. Relations to address the threat of U.S. tariffs that could come into effect next week. Good afternoon. The countdown is on. We're just days away from Donald Trump's inauguration.
In preparation, the Prime Minister has gathered a group of former premiers and some influential business leaders into this new council that is meeting for the first time today. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris is live with the latest. Siobhan.
Well, I just spoke with somebody who emerged from that meeting and said it was productive, that you had all those leaders on the same page. On Wednesday, the Prime Minister heard from provincial leaders. Today, 18 prominent Canadians, people that Justin Trudeau is leading on for advice when it comes to the tariff threat. There are leaders from labor and auto manufacturing. Lana Payne, the national president of Unifor, and Flavio Volpe from the Auto Parts Manufacturers Association. Of course, we know that if tariffs do come to pass, Ontario's auto industry will be badly hurt. There's also business leaders like Arlene Dickinson and former Premiers Jean Charest and Rachel Notley. Trudeau thanked the members of this group for saying yes to his call for help. He still hopes that tariffs can be avoided next week.
But if the worst case scenario comes to pass, we will need all your knowledge, insights, expertise, and quite frankly, connections with American business leaders and political leaders to make sure that they know that the decision to impose tariffs on Canada will hurt Americans first and foremost. We need to respond in the most appropriate way to demonstrate there are no winners in a trade fight and to best support our friends, our neighbors, and our Canadian family who are most affected by the tariffs.
Now, Flavio Volpe told me that he and the Prime Minister are now on their way to Vaughan to have a more serious discussion about the auto sector in particular, again, because we know it represents so many jobs across Ontario. As for the Council, they will meet again next week when we have a better sense of exactly what Donald Trump has in mind. Reporting live downtown, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Still to come this noon hour, the U.S. Supreme Court upholds a law that could ban TikTok across the states. But it could mean for people who use the popular social media platform.
But first, we're learning more about the 9-year-old boy killed in a single vehicle crash on the QEW in Oakville earlier this week. The boy's family has now identified him as Damien Markle. His aunt tells us Damien was on his way home to Hamilton from a weekend fishing trip near Belleville with his dad and uncle when the crash happened just after midnight on Monday. In a statement, his family says Damien was a boy whose heart was as big as his smile, and his laughter was the kind of sound that made everyone around him feel like the world was a little bit brighter. Damien's 38-year-old father was behind the wheel of the pickup truck when it left the QEW and rolled over. Damien was ejected from the truck and rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The boy's dad was also taken to hospital with serious injuries. The OPP says the investigation into this crash continues, and police are looking into the potential lack of seatbelt use and fatigue as contributing factors.
Homicide investigators have made another arrest in connection with the murder of a Markham realtor. Yokying Anita Moy was reported missing by family August 9th. The 56-year-old's vehicle was found near Warden and Finch, and days later, her burned remains were found in Parry Sound. Afterwards, 3 youths were arrested for having Moy's property in their possession. And last month, 2 men were arrested on charges including manslaughter. Police say on Thursday, they arrested 19-year-old Javin Liu of Toronto and charged him with manslaughter, kidnapping, and other offenses. Another suspect, 47-year-old Jean-Marco Hugh of Markham, is facing a Canada-wide warrant, but it's believed he fled to Hong Kong.
A 16-year-old girl has been charged with murder 2 months after a newborn was found dead in an Alliston home. The OPP say they made the discovery on November 21st, and it was ruled a homicide, but they haven't specified how the newborn died or how the infant was related to the teen in custody. She made a virtual court appearance yesterday from the police detachment in Alliston on charges of first-degree murder and committing an indignity to a dead body. The allegations have not been tested in court.
Police are investigating a disturbing and bizarre crime in a South Mississauga neighborhood.
A teen boy under arrest accused of deliberately starting a fire in the home yesterday. A dog was also found injured inside. CTV's Mike Walker has the story.
A teenage boy is led away in handcuffs after crews responded to this Mississauga home for a fire and found an injured dog inside.
What we know to be true now is that the fire was intentionally set. We have taken a male youth into custody who is associated to the address here and believed to be responsible for both the fire and the injuries sustained by that animal.
Investigators say no one else was inside the home on Atwater Avenue when first responders arrived shortly before noon, after someone passing by called 911. At this point, it's not clear how the fire was deliberately started, but officials say the blaze caused substantial damage inside the home. It's also not clear exactly how the animal was injured.
Well, the information provided to us at the beginning was that it was stabbed. We haven't been able to confirm that as of yet.
Police arrested the teen in a creek just a short distance from the home. Neighbors tell CTV News a family with a little dog lived here.
It's quite upsetting, quite disturbing. The dog has been like a wonderful therapy dog for the gentleman across the street who just lost his wife. So it's like I can't understand somebody attacking a little animal like that.
Many are dog owners. They are horrified after learning what happened.
To have the type of will and intention to do that type of stuff is pretty wrong. Like, me as a pet owner, it's awful to hear that type of stuff.
Police say they are considering mental health as a factor.
You know, the circumstances of this are strange to say the least, or bizarre to say the least, and it, of course, is something that's going to be considered. If it is an element of the offense, of course, it doesn't excuse the criminality here.
The injured dog was taken to a local animal hospital to be treated. Mike Walker, CTV News.
York Regional Police have announced the arrest of one of their own on criminal charges. Police say their Professional Standards Bureau conducted the investigation, and they arrested Constable Guangnan Gary's son. He's facing 23 charges of unauthorized use of computer, 2 charges of breach of trust by public officer, and 1 of obstructing justice. He's been employed by York Regional Police since August 2022 and will have his first court date February 18th.
Now to a crash involving multiple police cruisers and a Hummer that was reported stolen.
The driver is in custody, who it's alleged has an extensive list of prior convictions. CTV's Janice Golding is live at the scene near Richmond and George Street. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, it was a very wild scene here last night on George Street, just north of Richmond. If you take a look behind us here, you'll actually see some of the debris from the interaction with police. And if you take a look at my hand here, I actually am holding a door handle that came off in the interaction when the suspect tried to get away from police. This dramatic surveillance video shows the moments leading up to the arrest of a suspect. Officers closing in on him while the driver tries to push past Toronto police cruisers in a stolen Hummer. Despite his attempts to get away, however, the man would ultimately be boxed in, sandwiched between police SUVs in a building on George Street just north of Richmond.
We just looked out the window and saw the Hummer come down really fast down the street, and then literally like 8 or 9 cop cars swarm from all directions. And then it just kept like ramming into the cop cars like again and again. So then police were getting out with their guns.
Residents say it was around 10:15 when they heard the commotion outside their window, and then they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
Like literally out of a movie, like cars sprinting down, and then the Hummer comes down, and then they're ramming into the police. It was just insane.
Investigators say the Hummer's driver was out on bail after being arrested in connection with a previous incident involving a police pursuit of a stolen vehicle.
We are very lucky we don't have an officer that was either killed or injured, seriously injured last night.
Toronto Police Association President Clayton Campbell expressing anger today that despite numerous calls for action, bail reform has not been forthcoming. Campbell asking, when will enough be enough, as he alleged the suspect had been involved in multiple police pursuits in the past.
Yeah, he's 32 years of age with 75 convictions. We completely support restorative justice, but this is 75 chances. This person needs to be in custody, and thank God for the brave work our members did last night. Or if he would have escaped this box and got out on the streets of Toronto with this weather with snow on the ground, we could have had a hurt citizen, a killed citizen.
Police have not released the suspect's name, nor have they confirmed the charges he is facing. No officers were injured, but we are told that the suspect was taken to hospital as a precautionary measure. Toronto EMS confirming that they transported one person to hospital with minor injuries. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. We'll have more news in a moment, but first, let's take a live look at our city this Friday afternoon, and you will notice It's not so cold today, not as cold as it's been. Now, that's not going to last forever, but for right now, it's not too bad. And Lindsay, it looked like there was a little bit of sunshine there, too.
We did have a little bit of sunshine this morning as well, Michelle. Then the cloud cover kind of took over, but you're right. We get a break today from not only the active weather, but the cold. Let's take a look at our current temperatures. 1 degree already in Niagara Falls, Hamilton, London, 0 in Peterborough at this hour. Similar conditions at Pearson Airport. And yes, it's mostly cloudy, but if we're lucky, we'll still get a few more sunny breaks this afternoon. Now, I want to mention the winds. Even though they are relatively light, they are coming from a southwest direction. That's assisting with our warm up. And all is quiet right now on the satellite and radar, but that won't be the case at all times this weekend. We have a disturbance that's going to roll through for tomorrow morning. And because we're experiencing mild weather, we could get some wet snow. We could also get some rain. Then the temperature plummets after that. Lots to talk about in your weekend forecast. It's coming up. For now, though, Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Well, now we take it to City Council, where the proposed 2025 budget is under the microscope.
One important budget item is funding for the city's paramedic services. CTV's Natalie Johnson is live at City Hall with more details. Natalie.
Hi, Nathan. Well, under the proposed budget for 2025, there is an allowance for 59 new paramedic positions within Toronto EMS. This is part of a broader plan to add 276 more emergency positions overall. The chief of the paramedic service was here at the budget committee today, outlining the need to beef up that complement of frontline paramedics. Many of the questions from councillors here today had to do with what the anticipated need for paramedic response could be in the year moving forward once the city's safe consumption sites close. Now, that is, of course, a directive from the province, who will be replacing those supervised sites with treatment hubs if they are in proximity to a school or a daycare, which effectively shutters 5 of them in Toronto. Critics, meanwhile, have warned that the closure of these sites will force drug users out onto the streets, where they will be at higher risk of unsupervised overdose. The chief of the paramedics saying today that it is difficult to forecast the increased demand on emergency medical calls that could come as a result of this, but he says that the increased number of paramedics will be valuable.
We think that it will help. It's hard to say whether it will address the issue completely. Again, I can't say with any degree of certainty what the impact will be. The addition of staff will really help to address our call volumes in general, will help to address some of the healthcare system pressures that we're dealing with. And so we feel it will help. I can't say for sure, though, how much.
Nobody knows exactly how bad this problem is going to be. It's one of the reasons why the province shouldn't be doing it. They have no idea how many people are going to start dying or needing emergency services on the streets of Toronto. The head of our paramedic service said he doesn't know how to predict this. It's never happened before. But I'm deeply concerned, and I think all Torontonians should be deeply concerned, that access to emergency services is suddenly going to drop when these sites close.
And new Fire Chief Jim Jessup was also here at the Budget Committee this morning, answering questions from councillors about a potential increase to fire response as a result of unsupervised overdoses. He says that his members administer naloxone to people who are overdosing about 100 times a year. He thinks it is impossible to predict what exactly any increased demand for fire calls might be once those consumption sites close. That closure is slated to happen before March. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan and Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. The province has begun issuing the $200 rebate checks promised by the Premier a few months back.
First off, our revenues were higher. It's the taxpayers' money, and many people are, struggling to pay the bills. And so we thought it was very important to put some money, their money, taxpayers' money, back at a time when we got financial strength and when people could use, families could use a few extra dollars.
To be eligible, the province says residents must have been 18 or older on December 31st, 2023, and have filed their 2023 income tax return by the end of last year.
The province's Integrity Commissioner has declined a request from the opposition to investigate a complaint linked to the redevelopment of Ontario Place. The NDP had called for an investigation into Infrastructure Minister Kinga Surma and the province's deal with Therma to build a large spa at Ontario Place. Integrity Commissioner J. David Wake now says he won't pursue the matter, in part because Surma's ministry was not responsible for Ontario Place until after the Therma deal was reached. Last month, the AG called the process neither fair nor transparent, claims the province has disputed. Minister Surma commented, saying, "I'd like to thank the Integrity Commissioner for taking the time to carefully review these important projects. We are proud of the work we are doing for the taxpayers of this province and will continue to build Ontario."
In the Middle East, a major hurdle has been overcome in efforts to halt the fighting in Gaza and return hostages to Israel. The Israeli Security Cabinet is now recommending approval of the ceasefire agreement that was announced this week. It met today after a delay when the Prime Minister's office said there were last-minute snags in finalizing the deal. The accord is still conditional on the approval of the full cabinet, which is meeting this afternoon. If the agreement is passed, the truce could start today. The first phase would see 33 hostages released over the next 6 weeks in exchange for hundreds of Palestinians imprisoned by Israel and the eventual withdrawal of Israeli troops. In Gaza, authorities say at least 104 Palestinians have been killed since the deal was announced on Wednesday.
We have more now on the effort to convince U.S. President-elect Donald Trump that it is not a good idea to impose tariffs on Canadian goods. The Foreign Affairs Minister spoke to reporters this morning after talks in Washington.
When I talk about the tariffs themselves and their impact, people in Washington are surprised. And when I mention the impacts of a Trump tariff tax on Americans, they're not only surprised, they're very worried. There's a level of disorganization that is happening in any transition. And so, while we've been very organized on the border and very organized in really talking about tariffs, people in Washington are just settling in.
Trump has threatened to impose 25% tariffs on all products coming into the United States from Canada, and that could happen as soon as Monday when he is sworn into office. Mélanie Joly met with Republican and Democratic lawmakers yesterday discussing border security, trade, and investment, among other issues.
Chrystia Freeland has made it official. The former Deputy Prime Minister will run to become the new leader of the Liberal Party. In a one-sentence statement on social media today, Freeland said her official campaign launch will be on Sunday, and she says she's running to fight for Canada. The announcement comes less than 5 weeks after Freeland resigned her cabinet seat over a dispute with the Prime Minister. She was a key player in responding to Trump's tariffs during his first term as president. Her campaign says she wants dollar-for-dollar retaliation against any tariffs. Freeland resigned from cabinet when the PM told her he was replacing her with Mark Carney as finance minister. He's now one of the highest profile candidates in the race so far after declaring yesterday that he will seek the leadership. But the field's expected to get more crowded soon. Government House leader Karina Gould is expected to launch her campaign in the coming days.
The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld a law that would ban TikTok if it's not sold to a U.S. company before Sunday. The court's decision is the latest in the legal battle involving one of the world's largest social media platforms. The federal law requires the platform to divest from its Chinese-based parent company or be banned by January 19th. Let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst for more on this. Scott, tell us what this Supreme Court ruling will actually mean for the future of the app, especially in the U.S.
Yeah, Michelle, even with the U.S. Supreme Court upholding the law banning TikTok, there are still lots of questions around the U.S. and lots of uncertainty in the nation's capital about what a ban might look like and how it might be enforced. So that is the concern right now. That is the question right now, particularly ahead of the inauguration of incoming U.S. President Donald Trump. Currently, the White House says it won't immediately enforce the ban. This is ultimately coming into effect on its last day in office before Donald Trump is inaugurated on Monday, handing off the decision to the incoming Trump administration. Of course, millions of people in the U.S. and around the world are invested and closely watching this decision, this high-stakes legal drama, as for many who use TikTok south of the border, It ultimately is their livelihood. They are influencers. It is their career. It's how they make money. Last year, ByteDance was ordered to sell the app or face being banned in the U.S. over the U.S. government's national security concerns and the ownership group's ties to the Chinese government. Of course, the U.S. Supreme Court ruling is a blow to the popular social media platform, but now so much uncertainty. Donald Trump, in just the past hour on social media, had this to say. The Supreme Court decision was expected and everyone must respect it. My decision on TikTok will be made in the not too distant future, but I must have time to review the situation. Stay tuned. Here's more from tech analyst Carmi Levy on the impact of this potential ban.
There may be some videos that don't run properly. There may be some error messages here and there, but generally speaking, the platform is expected to work as it currently does, at least for Sunday. Whole different ballgame on Monday when the new administration is inaugurated, at which point Donald Trump has basically said he intends to ensure that TikTok does have a future in the U.S.
So there's no specific timeline on when the Trump administration might make a decision, but we do know TikTok's CEO has been given some prime seating at the upcoming inauguration on Monday, and the company says ultimately it may go dark when the ban comes into effect. Nathan and Michelle?
Well, that is interesting. All this happening in the U.S., but obviously we always wonder, could there be an impact for users here in Canada? At least in Canada, we know that it's been banned on government devices. That happened a few years back. So yeah, would Canadian users see any impact?
Yeah, Michelle, let's start there. We do know that it is banned on Canadian government-issued mobile devices, echoing security concerns over the app. And if the U.S. ban is upheld, well, Canada and the Canadian government might be inclined to follow suit. But of course, a lot is riding on what actually happens south of the border. So we should know more in the days and weeks ahead. In the meantime, Canadian users might see a loss of audience, a loss of engagement from the United States. You can bet there was a huge audience south of the border. But I should point out that the law in the U.S. specifically applies there only for now, meaning it should not disrupt or affect TikTok use immediately on this side of the border for now. So that is the question, Michelle.
CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
An erupting volcano in Hawaii is drawing many visitors to the Big Island. The eruption began December 23rd in a crater at the summit of the Kilauea volcano. It's paused but resumed yesterday in what scientists called a small, sluggish lava flow. But it then increased into a fountain that appeared to be 60 meters high. By the afternoon, visitors to the national park were able to see two fountains. It's possible fountain heights could increase as much more gas-rich lava erupts.
SpaceX suspects a fire may have caused its Starship to break apart during liftoff, sending trails of flaming debris near the Caribbean.
We have liftoff.
The world's biggest and most powerful rocket launched from the southern tip of Texas on a test flight early last evening. But the engines on the still ascending spacecraft shut down one by one, and communication was lost 8.5 minutes into that flight. Preliminary indications are leaking fuel built up pressure into the cavity above the engine firewall. The booster made it back to the pad for catch by giant mechanical arms. That was only the second time in Starship history. This was the 7th test flight for this big rocket. Lindsay.
Well, our weekend is beginning on a mild note, but it will end very cold. Look what's back, the polar vortex. Technically, it always exists at the poles, but with this weaker jet stream that we're experiencing, that cold Arctic air is moving south. And in this particular instance, it's going to impact a widespread area of North America. But let's talk about Toronto. The last time we had a daytime high colder than -10 degrees was February 3rd, 2023. That was almost 2 years ago. It's the same date that we last had a low below -20 degrees. Now, we could experience highs and lows close to this, and wind chills making it feel like -30 at times next week. A full look at your 7-day forecast is after this break here on CTV News.
The 67th annual boat show officially opens tomorrow with everything from wild-looking watercrafts to new ways to get out onto the water. And that's where we find our Jessica Smith, who is riding the waves firsthand. Hey, Jess.
Hey,
Nathan. Now, I'm tempted to get out on the water, but we're going to watch the demonstrations first. But it is a really exciting time. As you mentioned, the 67th Annual Toronto Boat Show. I'm joined by Linda Waddell with the boat show. Lots of new stuff going on, and we're really seeing demonstrations behind us of some of the more, I guess, new watercrafts when it comes to including things that are electric. Tell me if that's something that you guys are really excited about including now.
So, options. I would say there are a lot of options for people that want to try electric, like the flight board, like the jet surf that you're watching. Technology is advancing to make using boats or personal watercrafts easier than ever before, and you can come and see demos and try this type of stuff right here at the show.
Now, we had a demonstration earlier that the whole watercraft, it folds up into a backpack. Is it about convenience for people now?
For some people it is, because maybe the budget size of owning a full-size boat might not be what you can afford yet. So you can go canoeing and kayaking and have your tent in your backpack, your kayak in your backpack, and go and explore and have an amazing, amazing time on the water for a very affordable, convenient way.
Now, I saw a 48-foot yacht out there. Now, for the more experienced boaters, maybe the people that are feeling kind of fancy and want to include a yacht in their life as we head in towards the summer of 2025, is there something truly for everybody, regardless of budget?
That's exactly right. The way you say it, there's something for everyone. In between the yachts that you're talking about in the 40-foot plus for power boats and sailboats, there's fishing boats, there's deck boats, pontoon boats, wakeboard boats. Like, it's endless depending what you want to do on the water. So really from small right up to luxury and large.
Now, safety is a big part of being out on the water, and I know that there's an invention that is from a Canadian company all about keeping people safe, and a bonus, it glows in the dark.
We have a launch from a company called Glow Rope, first ever in the world, Transport Canada approved, and they're glow-in-the-dark ropes, buoys, fenders, life rings. It's an amazing invention, and he's launched it right here at our event.
What does it mean to you that people want to bring, their new inventions, their ways to keep people safe while they're out on the water to your show and showcase it here?
We're proud of what we do. We feel like we bring a lifestyle that makes people happy. People have stress, they're busy lives. You can get on the water anywhere in Ontario, anywhere across Canada. We have water. We have access to safe, clean water with lakes and cottages and campgrounds, and to really connect with your friends and family and get away from the stress. And that's what's going on here. People are planning their summer. You're like getting ready here to get plans for your summer, and it's just makes us feel like we do something to help businesses and to help people with quality of life.
I mean, I know everyone's already sick of the winter weather, even though we're still very much into the winter season, and it's only getting colder this week. When it comes to your hours, I know you guys have changed a couple of things, making it easier if you work the maybe non-traditional, 9 to 5 isn't what you're dealing with.
So we're a 9-day show, so it covers 2 weekends, opening tomorrow on Saturday at 10 a.m. And so for people that maybe work longer hours midweek, we're opening till 10 p.m. on Thursday, calling it Late Night Thursday. For someone who wants more time to shop, we have 300 seminars, so that's a lot of education to connect with in a shorter day. So our website has all the hours. They're different depending on the day of the week, but new this year is a Late Night Thursday.
There is literally something for everybody, from dinghies to yachts. Linda, thank you so much. Nathan, I'm going to send things back aside to you and Michelle.
All right, thanks so much, Jess. You can't help but just wish we were in the middle of summer and we could be out on a boat right now, chilling in the nice warm heat, but not for a while.
But I find when the boat show comes around, it's a reminder that the warmer days are definitely coming. A lot of parents know that now's the time you have to book summer camps, right? So it'll be here before you know it. And we just have to get through some really, cold temps next week.
Yeah, I think some of the lakes are going to become a little more frozen in the next week or so here before we get some thawing and we can start thinking about boating. But an exciting weekend for the boat show. That'll be a good place to go. Stay inside, keep warm, especially on Sunday. Tomorrow, though, we're going to start off very mild. We just have to watch for a little bit of icing and maybe flash freezing as the temperature falls. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Today is a nice little break from both the cold and the active weather. We had an interesting cloud deck early this morning as our CTV News chopper was flying high over the city at around 7:30 this morning. Some sun today. In fact, we're getting sunny breaks right now in many areas, but eventually the cloud cover is going to take over and some active weather is going to return. Let's talk temperatures first, though. It is 0 degrees. It's been a while since we've been able to say that here locally in Toronto. And this afternoon, we're forecasting a high of 2 degrees. Still a little bit of a wind chill factor, even with the winds coming out of the southwest. It might make it feel slightly colder than that temperature suggests, but I don't think anyone's complaining. Today, we are above seasonal. Average daytime high this time of year, or seasonal norm, is -2. We will be well below that as early as Saturday night. Tonight, I think, is the night to get outside, maybe enjoy some winter activities like a skate, for example, because conditions will be comfortable, pleasant, although it is going to be a little bit windy, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. First, though, here's tomorrow at a glance. In the morning, still warm. Our temperature is going to hold mild through the overnight hours, but we get into some flurries or some rain showers. That will continue into at least the early part of the afternoon. And then look at the temperature starting to fall into the evening. By Saturday overnight and into Sunday, we'll be back in the minus double digits. And we've got this disturbance moving through because the temperature is milder. We're anticipating that we will get a shot of wet snow, maybe about 2 centimeters here locally. But again, it's going to be warm. A lot of that is going to melt. Notice the green, that's rain. And the majority of that, there's a bit of a mixing line that's going to happen right along the shores of Lake Ontario. This is fast moving. By about the noon hour, it's pushing on out. The afternoon will be drier, but at that point, the winds are going to change direction, and that cold air is going to start to filter in. So here is a special weather statement that was recently issued by Environment Canada, warning of these strong winds. Just want to show you, they're going to be coming out of the south and southwest, gusting in some cases where the advisory is in place to about 80 kilometers per hour. So secure any loose objects you may have. And then we tap into more of a northwesterly wind starting Saturday afternoon, continuing into the night. Looks like we're going to experience our coldest weather in years next Monday and Tuesday, possibly Wednesday as well, before some relief starts to set in again for the end of next week. Here's the 7-day forecast. Daytime highs a couple of times in the minus double digits. Overnight lows at times next week close to minus 20 degrees. And with the winds at times next week, it could feel like the minus 20s or minus 30. That's your look at the weather for now. Michelle, over to you.
Oh, that's so cold. Thank you, Lindsay. Well, if you're planning to take transit to get around the city this weekend, there are some major subway disruptions to note, as they have on all of the weeknights this week. Line 1 trains will stop running between St. Clair and Finch stations at 11 p.m. tonight. They won't run at all tomorrow between St. Clair and York Mills. These closures are to allow for planned track work, and shuttle buses will operate instead, and regular service resumes Sunday. And as we head into the weekend, the TTC has updated its list of reduced speed zones on the subway. There are currently 10 stretches of lines 1 and 2 where trains have been operating more slowly as a safety measure. The transit agency says it does so to keep service moving while tracks are in need of upgrades or maintenance. Live shot right now as we look at that, folks, enjoying the rink, and it's milder today. There's much more CTV News at noon when we return. The latest figures from the province show nearly 2,000 Ontarians hospitalized due to COVID, flu, and RSV infections. The Public Health Ontario are sharing these figures from the week of January 5th through to the 11th. They show all 3 of those respiratory viruses spreading at moderate levels. Meanwhile, over 1,000 patients were admitted for treatment while battling COVID infections, and 5 died. 507 patients were in hospital with the flu, 375 for RSV. Health experts say it's not too late to get vaccinated if eligible to protect from those more severe outcomes.
Toronto Public Health will start conserving its rabies vaccine supply because of a shortage in Ontario. The health agencies instructed doctors to start limiting the city's remaining supplies to those with high-risk exposures, such as direct contact with bats and wild animals. 2 rabies vaccines are approved for use in Canada, and there have been shortages of both in recent months. Also today, Peel Region announced the appointment of its next medical officer of health. Dr. Hamida Megani will take on the role as of February 18th, following key roles at Public Health Ontario, Halton Region, and Hamilton Public Health.
The province is pledging to make it easier for seniors aged 80 and up to renew their driver's licenses. Drivers in that age group have to renew their G or M class licenses every 2 years. And part of that process includes vision and cognitive screening assessments. But up until now, those tests have been carried out at locations other than Service Ontario, meaning the renewal process would take at least 2 separate visits. The ministry responsible now says select Service Ontario locations will offer those tests starting February 3rd, and all will do so by spring.
Still to come, a new CEO is set to take the helm at TD Bank earlier than expected. We'll explain why and get you the rest of your business headlines after the break.
Toronto Dominion Bank says its new chief executive officer will begin in the job much earlier than expected.
And TD has slashed bonus pay for dozens of top executives as it deals with the fallout from a scandal involving inadequate controls on money laundering in its U.S. operations. Paul Bagnall of B&M Bloomberg has more.
Hello, I'm Paul Bagnall at B&M Bloomberg. Toronto Dominion Bank is moving up the start date for its new chief executive officer by 2 months and has also slashed some executives' bonus pay in the wake of its money laundering scandal in the United States. Raymond Chun will now take over from current CEO Bharat Masrani on February the 1st instead of April the 10th. Also, 5 long-serving directors will leave the bank's board, and the board's chair, Alan McGibbon, will step down at the end of the year. Mark Carney, the former Bank of Canada and Bank of England governor, now running for the leadership of the Federal Liberal Party, has stepped down as chairman of Brookfield Asset Management. Brookfield Chief Executive Officer Bruce Flatt will take over as board chair. In addition to his position on the board of directors, Carney also led Brookfield's Energy Transition Unit, and Carney has also stepped down as chair of Bloomberg News. And the Canadian dollar was trading at 69.4 cents U.S. in the late morning Eastern time today. The loonie has traded at less than 70 cents U.S. since December the 17th. One worry that currency markets have is the impact on the Canadian economy of potential U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods shipped to the U.S. under the incoming administration of Donald Trump. And that's the latest business news from B&M Bloomberg. I'm Paul Bagnall.
Apple is scaling back its use of artificial intelligence to summarize news notifications. The notifications were part of AI-powered software upgrades to more recent models of iPhones. The technology summarizes multiple notifications into one, so they're easier to review quickly. But Apple had come under fire after users reported the AI summaries included error-filled headlines. On Thursday, Apple disabled the feature as it works on improvements. The company plans to then re-enable the new summary tool in a future update. Well, it's already been 2 months since Taylor Swift took over Toronto with her Eras tour, causing ticket and hotel prices to go through the roof.
But some fans are still trying to get refunds, saying expensive accommodations they booked for the show were not as advertised. CTV's Pat Foran has this consumer alert.
Welcome to the Eras tour.
There is no doubt hotel room prices were at a premium when Taylor Swift was in Toronto for her Eras tour. Alicia Keim of Vancouver and her friend knew accommodations would be expensive, but the self-described Swifties didn't want to miss their favorite artist.
The Eras tour is probably the best show I've ever been to.
Keim booked a hotel room on Hotels.com and agreed to pay over $1,800 for a 3-night stay. She assumed using the website she was getting a hotel room. But when they got to the downtown building, there were immediate red flags.
And they had this really weird check-in process where it was somebody texting a bunch of stuff and you had to confirm, and then someone was going to call you.
When Keim and her friend got to their floor, it was clear it wasn't a hotel.
The elevator doors opened up and a man was there. He had a dog. He was wearing sweatpants.
She was shocked to find out they would have to share a space with the man, his dog, and other people in a condo, not a hotel room.
It was an apartment, and I looked at him and I asked, like, what is this? And the man said, "Didn't you read the fine print? Didn't you read the listing?"
Kime says she and her friend didn't feel safe, so they didn't stay and found an actual hotel. When they contacted Hotels.com for a refund, they were told the room they had booked was non-refundable.
I would like a refund, but I think I'm past that part. I just want nobody else to lose their hard-earned money.
CTV News reached out to Hotels.com on Kime's behalf, and parent company Expedia told us, "We have an ongoing investigation with this property. We are sorry for Alicia's experience and are working to ensure this does not happen to future travelers." Kime was refunded half her money, $900. She wanted to warn others when using the website to be sure you're booking an actual hotel room and not shared accommodations with someone you don't know. Pat Foran, CTV News.
And we return now to the boat show, dropping anchor here in Toronto. Jessica Smith is live with a preview of what the show has to offer. And Jess, that boat life is very compelling.
It is very compelling. And if you want to do something maybe a little different, there's lots of options. Michelle, we're down here at the water level talking to Charlie Newlands with SWS Muskoka. Now, you've got one of these really cool devices where I saw you out there surfing a little bit earlier, but talk to me about what this is, because if you live near Lake Ontario, you've probably seen it before, but for the folks who are new to this, explain to me what we're standing beside.
So this is the electric hydrofoil by Flightboard. We are the #1 Ontario dealer. We can provide all your Flightboard needs. It is super easy to learn, safe, and it's been a privilege to be out here testing out in the lake.
I feel like it's one of those things where you might see it and be a little bit intimidated, but who is this for? Because if you're maybe, newer to the boating world, or you just want to get out there and try something different, who is this activity for?
It's really for anybody, as long as you're comfortable in the water. You're always going to have a life jacket on and a helmet for safety, but the learning curve is very simple, and it's really for everybody.
What's your favorite part about being out on the water? We saw you earlier doing the demonstration. You looked very fancy, very comfortable, very cool. But what's your favorite part about getting out and demonstrating all these different kind of fun water toys?
Well, going fast, doing nice turns, being out there, if there's some nice waves, you can kind of surf the waves a bit. But just, being out and, being active.
Now, there's lots of different options for people. I saw one that's got handles on it. Yep. There's a couple different things for people. For those who are looking to get into kind of the water world, they want to experiment with some of these things, what would you say to them if they're a little bit nervous, but they're looking at this, they come to the boat show and they're like, that looks super cool, I got to try it?
Yeah, I would say come talk to us. We're booth 1732. Come check it out and maybe come get a lesson with us this summer. And it's super safe and fun, and it really is for everybody.
Well, I'm going to let you get out and demonstrate this. Charlie's going to get on the water, but again, the boat show runs until January 26th. Just like that, super easy peasy. He's up, he's out, he's moving. Very cool. All right, I'll send things back to the studio.
Cool indeed. Thank you, Jess. Well, Hollywood is mourning the death of legendary director David Lynch.
He was the creative mind behind some of the most distinctive TV shows and films over the last 50 years, including Twin Peaks.
This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
Lynch received Oscar noms for directing The Elephant Man, Blue Velvet, and Mulholland Drive. And in 2019, he was presented with an honorary Lifetime Achievement Oscar. Lynch was 78 years old. The news confirmed by his family in a post on his Facebook page. They shared a message announcing his death along with a picture, adding, "There's a big hole in the world now that he's no longer with us. But as he would say, keep your eye on the donut and not on the hole." Kyle MacLachlan, who worked with Lynch on Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet, shared several photos on Instagram and a lengthy tribute, writing in part, "I will miss him more than the limits of my language can tell and my heart can bear. My world is that much fuller because I knew him, and that much emptier now that he's gone." Fellow Blue Velvet star and Lynch's one-time girlfriend, Isabella Rossellini, wrote on social media, "I loved him so much. Thanks for all your kind messages."
To sports, the Leafs were at home last night looking to end a 3-game losing streak. William Nylander locked down the win for the Leafs, scoring his second of the game to give Toronto the 4-3 win over the Devils in overtime. Austin Matthews also found the back of the net twice. This was the first visit back to Toronto for Devils head coach Sheldon Keefe after he was let go by the team last May. The Leafs are back in action tomorrow night against the Montreal Canadiens.
Letting the clock work. Scotty down the lane. Jakob Poeltl on the scene. Offensive rebound, put back.
And the Raptors visit Milwaukee tonight, hoping to build on back-to-back victories. Toronto beat the Celtics 110-97 on Wednesday and will go for its first 3-win stretch of the season. The Raptors are 6 wins off the pace they set last year when they hit the season's halfway point with 16 wins and 25 losses. The Bucks have won their last 2 games.
Coming up, some pet owners may think their furry friends are divine, but in Spain, a special ceremony is taking it to the next level. We'll explain after the break.
In Spain, dozens of pet owners took their animals to church today. Catholic priests blessed them on the day of St. Anthony, the patron saint of animals. The ceremony took place on the steps outside the St. Anthony Church in Madrid. Dogs and cats were sprinkled with holy water in a Catholic tradition meant to bring the animals health and protection for the coming year. An annual mass also takes place when the pets are welcome inside the church. And I'm sure it's nice and warm in there. I'm thinking about pets and keeping them warm.
Definitely. I mean, today's not too bad, but as we dip into some of those massive below zero numbers next week, it'll be tough for some pets.
Yeah, today's the day to take Fido for a walk. And I'm going to butter you up a little bit before I break the bad news for later this weekend. Today is a great day. We're forecasting a high of 2 degrees. We've got some sunshine out there. And then tonight, the temperature holds steady at around 2. That does complicate things a little bit when it comes to the active weather that's going to roll in tomorrow morning. Around 7 a.m., you can expect some wet snow or maybe even some rain showers mixing in. That is going to move out by the afternoon. What a difference Saturday from about 1 degree in the morning to -8 for the daytime high on Sunday. So we start off the weekend mild, we end it very cold, and our focus remains next week in those very cold daytime highs and overnight lows, especially Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Nathan and Michelle.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a wonderful afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.